What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing our Mock Draft Monday 2-round mock draft with no trades, but we're going to have plenty of videos this week. We're going to be talking about stuff, including, of course, our weekly 3-round mock draft with trades later in the week, so stay tuned for that. But for those of y'all who are here right now, if you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. It is always changing. The guys with stars or guys who I project to be dropping, all this is based off of my pure all-22 grades. I don't move guys up or down because I believe in full transparency with you guys. If I grade a player as such, I feel like I should be personally responsible for showing you guys how highly I grade them. So that's going to be why you see some names that are a little bit unique to you. But if there's a star next to their name, either I don't have all 22 tape on them yet, or you know, your boy is getting to it. All right, let's get into this, though. Let's have a great time. We've had some shift-ups with our quarterbacks as well. If you guys follow me over on Twitter, I spam the shit out of Twitter, but it's actually all content that's going to be very related to this. So including all 22 clips that can give you reasons and to understand why I think the way I do. So below that, all the great ways to get involved in the community. Feel free to go to that link tree 2 clicks away from doing anything you want. Pick number 1 for the New England Patriots. This fucking kills me because this is the day, as I find out, Ben Morrison is out for the year. Josh Simmons out for the year. Like, you got to be making this shit up. Because, I mean, also Siobhan Revell out for the year. Harold Perkins out for the year. 4 first-round talents. We're already talking about a weak class coming into the year. Then you lose 4 of the guys. And so for this video, I'm going to be imagining that Ben Morrison returns. Josh Simmons, maybe not. He is up there in terms of age, and this is also a weaker offensive line class. He could still be drafted very highly, similar to Zach Frazier. So he'll still be included in this, but Simmons, Revell, as well as Perkins will be returning in this. So for the New England Patriots at 1, that limits our options down, and, you know, again, there's no trades in this, so keep that in mind. I do think that the best route to go is either edge rusher or left tackle. My only concern with Will Campbell is those arms. The arm length is just certainly questionable at best. And I'm looking at him versus guys like Kyle Kennard, who I ended up studying today. You guys can see literally me losing my mind in the wrong way and then losing my mind in a good way as I ended up grading him throughout today. Again, that's on my Twitter, so feel free to go to the link tree for that. But, you know, Will Campbell, he was actually having some length battles with Kyle Kennard, who definitely has a little bit shorter arms if I'm looking at him comparatively to other offensive tackles that have length. I think Will Campbell could end up having to be a guard. I love him to death, but there still is that potential of him being a guard. And I know that there are some tackles in round 2 that I might feel pretty comfortable with. Edge rusher too. You can't go wrong in this position. I'll actually still go Will Campbell, though. I just want to bring up the fact that he might end up having to be a guard. The chances are relatively lower than Caden Wallace, who I thought should have been a guard, but you know, you sometimes just have to fill the need with value, and technically Will Campbell is my number 2 player in the class because, again, Josh Simmons, this is grade 1 healthy, and Ben Morrison's not going to be included in this because he's a junior and just is out for the year, so he'll be able to come back and boost his stock again. And number 2 for the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be either running back, receiver, or quarterback because, again, I'm not going to draft Josh Simmons after he tears or messes up his knee at number 2 overall, as much as I think that he deserves it. But, you know, you could end up even looking at a guy like Will Johnson, but simply put, just go after the best player available, and people think Travis Hunter is generational tier. I'm not fully there with Travis, and I love Travis. It's like, again, there's no shade towards Travis. He's my number 9 player in the class. But I think that especially with the team losing Amari Cooper, losing Elijah Moore, it's going to be a really good piece to have on your squad. So Travis Hunter going to be the selection there. At pick number 3 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's going to be an easy one. To get that boundary corner that you've always dreamed of, I ended up actually having a trade between the Patriots and the Jaguars last week, so the Jaguars could end up sniping Will Johnson. At number 4 for the Carolina Panthers, you could look at quarterback here. We do have a second-round pick for that. I think the best quarterback in the class is tied between Jalen Milroe, and yes, all these quarterbacks are now fully updated apart from Drew Allar, which Drew Allar is already updated, but I'm talking about this past week where like it was arguably his worst performance, even though I still thought he did a good job. But I have a solidified top 5. You can end up looking at it on Twitter. Granted, the order shifted a little bit, but the top 5 still remains the same. But I think Jalen Milroe as well as Miller Moss, I just ended up rewatching Miller Moss, and it's like, you watch him on TV, I 100% understand why you have no idea that this guy's actually solid. because he looks kind of ass on TV. But when you actually just get to sit and watch the whole field and watch how he dissects it, he's actually fucking awesome. So keep that in mind. But I don't think quarterback's going to be the right move for the Panthers here. There's so many positions where you can address, including edge rusher. And I think getting a quality edge at this point is just super key. Give your defense kind of like their commander in chief. And Nick Scorton is an absolute beast. You can even lose some weight as well, and he could be even more athletic. But, he's somebody who's definitely deserving of a lot of love. And he's even deserving of a reanalysis because I graded him early on into the year where he's still getting used to that body. Also, he actually played injured the first week because he got injured mid-game. So we can actually see him be even more healthy now, and he's been performing very, very well. But getting a quality edge rusher is never a bad idea for the Panthers. At number 5 for the Rams, left tackle is super key. I just don't think someone who hurts their knee and is out for the year will end up going at pick 5. Otherwise, I'd go after Josh Simmons in a heartbeat. Again, there's no trades, so keep that in mind as well. I do think with Cooper Kupp on the way potentially out, because he's just getting older, injuries stacking up, you could certainly see somebody of the caliber of Luther Burden trying to step in. That being said, I do think that you could end up looking at left tackle still with Kelvin Banks, and I feel like you're going to be perfectly fine. So we'll go Kelvin Banks. I just believe in Josh Simmons a bit more, but Kelvin Banks is a very realistic pick at pick number 5. At pick number 6 for the Tennessee Titans, receiver, offensive tackle. You could even debate corner with how Snead's been playing. He's been doing a pretty poor job if we're going to be blunt, but there's certainly areas of improvement. And I personally think that the receiver route, I haven't gone receiver in the first, but with DeAndre Hopkins potentially like soon to be on his way out, Tyler Boyd as well, there is going to be a vacancy there, and you certainly could actually be looking for a weapon at this point. I think Isaiah Bond's special. He right now is there with Bo Collins as my wide receiver 1. Of course, Bo Collins is due for a reevaluation, but Bo Collins, without his drops, the dude just drops way too much. He should be on everybody's radar as one of the top guys in the class. But Isaiah Bond is the guy who I'm considering here. It's Isaiah Bond, or I think this is very up your guys' alley, Cam Williams. And I ended up going Cam Williams last time. I think I'm going to do it again. He's not necessarily the most polished guy, but he's super young, right? Chris Jones started last year. Was it Christian Jones? I think his name's Christian Jones. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's on the Cardinals. But so he's very, very new, very raw. But he ended up improving every game he's played this year from what I've seen so far. I haven't reevaluated him for his performance versus OU, which technically was his worst. But I looked at him versus Michigan, and there's some leverage problems there for sure. But I actually think of him very positively as a high ceiling prospect, especially in this class where the right tackles are just not very plentiful. And, he has the long arms. He has the great athleticism for the size as well. And it fits like almost to a T what you guys looked at and JC Latham and said, that's the guy who I want. So I feel like that's a perfectly reasonable decision. Let's go after Cam Williams and just solidify that line. Pick number 7 for the Bengals. Going after receiver certainly is on the market right now. Going after a running back as well is not out of the question, even though I really love Chase Brown. But I just don't really think you value that position to that degree. I'm pretty damn sure Ashton Genty should be going at this point, and he's been on a generational run, right? He just got 200 yards this past week, and it's like, I was on 30 carries, like, like someone getting 200 yards should not be like a push off type of thing. But T. Higgins could be gone. Tetro McMillan would make sense for that. I do think I want to address the defensive line though, and if you look at the edge rushers, the one that I would consider at this point is Princely Umanmielen. Unfortunately, don't look at this grade. He played 1 rep versus LSU. That's what really sucked, is not being able to see him go toe-to-toe with Will Campbell. But again, he's been a super stud this whole time. Someone who I want to continue pushing higher and higher and higher. I do think you guys like 265 plus, but that's something that I believe you should be able to flex your morals, so to speak. LT Overton's another one, but he to me is more of a late first to early second type of guy in this specific class. I would consider him purely day 2 and many others. So I'm actually just going to go after the best player available in terms of talent, and I'm actually going to look at Mason Graham here. Mason Graham brings a ton of upside on that defensive interior with his pass rush ability, with his explosiveness, and really solid size. I do think that he's continually progressed throughout his career. I think he got overrated by PFF last year, but this year I honestly love the fact that he's made his game more balanced. So 8.9% run stop rate is a really, really good number. Even if his pass rushing numbers aren't there, his high level pass rushing reps are dominant. And I think that translates better than just simply being overly consistently overly consistently winning is something that you could pretty much put on par with a couple really big wins. But pick number 8 for the New Orleans Saints. And again, to be fair, he's right below that 75th percentile territory. So he's doing a good job. It's not like we're going to crap on him. But for the Saints, I actually really liked how Spencer Rattler played, especially for his first game. I mean, yeah, he has some temperamental issues, had it back at OU, same thing at South Carolina. Just, I know it from personal anecdotal experience from people I know who dealt with him. But at the same time, the talent has never been in question. I don't know if anybody thought that he wasn't talented enough to start in the NFL or at least have a shot at starting in the NFL. They're idiots. But we have this similar conversation with Shedeur Sanders. Like, there's certain questions in terms of leadership. It's not a consensus that they are a leader. I know there's going to be people who thought Spencer Rattler is a leader. Some people will think Shedeur Sanders is a good leader. But there's at least discrepancy in terms of what people believe. And that is what made players fall, not their talent. Shedeur Sanders is a really good talent. I ended up reevaluating him today, and I actually see it with him. I think that he's better than what I gave him credit for, which, to be fair, before he ever took a snap at Colorado, keep re-emphasizing this, I had him as my QB5, above J.J. McCarthy, above Michael Penix. Like, I had Shedeur Sanders coming into that year. So, I mean, I do like Shedeur. It's just I've had some questions because I highly value consensus on good leadership. So, I personally think you guys are in good hands. I don't think that's going to become an issue to the point because you do have a really solid organization with a lot of really solid veterans to keep guys' heads on straight. If Trevor Penning could end up not being a complete waste of a pick, which, I mean, I guess to be fair, you could say he is, but mentally wise, he's been relatively head on. You'll be okay. So I'm actually going to look at a couple of options here. You could even look at Ashton Jeanty if you want to offload Kamara. You can get somebody who's an absolute super stud, but you also should be looking at top tier defensive back as well as receiver. And I love Bub Means and I kind of want him to develop. Don't think he should be the primary option, but at the same time, Malachi Starks to me is a far superior talent than any other defensive back in the class for the Saints. Nick Emonwari is still someone who I love to death. He's a freak athlete, but Malachi Starks, he's built to be a Saint. Saints have done an excellent job over recent years strengthening strengths, and the secondary has made them consistently strong. We're going to rock with it. At number 9 for the Cardinals, I honestly wouldn't put Ashton Jeanty out of the picture here because James Conner, he's been doing a solid job. Trey Benson, he's been very underwhelming. But this is going to be a combination essentially of both. And this could be the identity of the offense here. That being said, I do think edge rusher is still a pretty damn big position to grab. So I know my Cardinals fans are very vocal. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that before I pull that trigger because Abdul Carter's been doing a fantastic job. He was the highest grade defender this past week versus USC on Penn State. So I love the fact that he's become very well balanced. Now, I don't think he's there yet to where you can actually truly call him a 3-down threat, but he's certainly getting there and at a much faster rate than I think anybody has given him credit for and anybody expected. So awesome job by Abdul Carter because a lot of guys don't really take those progression steps the same way that we want them to, a la Mikael Williams, but he's doing it. At pick number 10 for the Las Vegas Raiders, I already know I'm going to piss people off because the quarterbacks are here and it's like, hey, take the quarterback. At the same time, there's a certain point to where we also have so many quarterbacks that you actually evaluate the position groups. By the way, I'm going to be taking Ashton Jeanty here. I think it's the best way that you can move forward for your team because if you had a quarterback that you believe is a genuine starter, not someone that in certain systems should start, like someone regardless of scheme should start, then you have an actual argument here. If you're going to look at it through my lens, which I know is sometimes hard to do when you see all these enticing quarterbacks and you have, pretty much buns for quarterbacks. We have quarterbacks here. Jalen Milroe is tied for my QB1. I think that he's still a fringe starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't think that your system with Luke Getsy is going to make Jalen Milroe a legitimate threat. You know what will make a quarterback like Milroe, like Ward, like Beck, like Moss, like Ewers actually able to have a solid career on the Raiders? Give him a damn good run game. And that's exactly what you'll get out of probably arguably the best running back talent we've ever seen. Freaking damn near 10 yards a carry over a whole season. And the reason why I'm really emphasizing this is because Quinshawn finally shit the bed. He had 10 carries, 26 yards, and a fumble. He had a couple receptions, so good for him. He ended up boosting his yards per touch, but yards per carry wise, he did a horrible job versus Oregon. So there is a pretty big gap now between RB1 and RB2. And this is a team that really needs to crutch, and you don't have a quarterback that you can crutch on in this class. You can crutch on Ashton Genty, and then you can go after the talent in the second round. But for the New York Giants, you don't have a Luke Getsy. You have a Brian Daboll. And a Brian Daboll, I trust a hell of a lot more with being able to fit with these specific scheme-built quarterbacks. And Jalen Milroe is that to a T. Again, he's now, based on even the most recent game where he technically underperformed, still is actually moved up my board to QB1 with Miller Moss. Both of them have the same grade. Pick number 12 for the Miami Dolphins. Defensive interior, a very intriguing option. Again, seeing Ben Morrison here just breaks my heart. But quarterback, you could consider it. Tua just said he's going to play this year, so it is a business decision for him. He elects to stay. You could end up saying that, based on that health, you could end up looking at offensive line. But Patrick Paul, technically supposed to take the mantle. Austin Jackson's at right tackle, so you're not going to draft a guard at 12. You would be drafting defensive interior most likely. I think that's the most logical move. Kenneth Grant is finally doing better and better and better. And so, I love the fact that he is improving week after week. And his size, his frame, it's going to be very exciting to see him in a role where Wilkins was not the same size as Grant, but he had the same level of athleticism and tenacity. At 13 for the New York Jets. So, wide receivers on the table here with T-Mac. It just sucks. It kind of sucks to have to think about wide receiver and then not take him, of course. But I also want to emphasize the tight ends in this class. The best weapon you can give a quarterback is a tight end that they can rely on time and time again. Receivers are awesome. They are. But you'll see that a lot of the top quarterbacks, they always have their reliable tight end. Mahomes and Kelsey, Brady and Gronk, even the Hernandez guy. Hey, I'm just hanging names up there. But I do think that a lot of tight ends, Lamar and Mark Andrews, soon to be Isaiah Likely, a lot of tight ends, or reliable tight ends, provide so much comfort for quarterbacks because of the fact that they provide a level of stability in an offense that sometimes receivers can't. So unless you're facing Fred Warner, not many linebackers can reliably handle a top-tier tight end. And you have to start putting safeties on them. That opens up the deep game. All of that to say, I'm going to get ballsy today. I'm going to give Tyler Warren the respect he deserves. He just had a 200-yard game. 200. 17 of 20. And he ended up having a fantastic week. He's 260 pounds, so he can elevate the run game as well. Tight end's been a position the Jets have just sucked at consistently. And reliable, high-quality tight ends are few and far between. And I think this is the class where we start saying we need to have these tight ends pushed up more because it's not a great class overall, and you have some very great weapons. Pick number 14 for the Seattle Seahawks. Right tackle is the position I want to target, but you could try Ursery at right tackle coming off one of his best weeks. Simmons, again, now it's in that range where it's like, hey, he was supposed to be a top 10 pick. Are you going to be able to, feast upon the unfortunate situation that Josh Simmons landed himself into? Emory Jones, by the way, guess how many pressures did he let up this week? If you guys are true homies, you actually watched the episode where I graded the top performances and the bottom ones. But 9 pressures allowed. This guy's a guard. The right tackle spot's a little bit thin. You could just say, let's roll the dice with Ursery because he's a great run blocker too. He's a powerful blocker. And you know what? Let's roll the dice. Let's have some fun here. Ariante Ursary, moving a left tackle to right tackle, you might end up failing doing so, but there's two conclusions I get out of it. One, you could have Ursary then end up be a guard and you're going to be okay. But two, it's not like you're going to get much of a downgrade. So your offense is still going to be kicking the way it normally does, even if he's not succeeding. But I think he's been doing a far better job this year, and he's shown progression as a pass blocker. And to me, if that can continue, I think that's going to be a very good sign, and his physicality matches the identity of the Seattle Seahawks. At pick 15 for the Denver Broncos, still got some top-tier receivers on the board. I know it's not the primary position for the Denver Broncos to target. However, I do think that giving Luther Burden Luther Burden's a perfect fit for Bo Nix, because you allow Luther to be similar to what I was talking about with the tight end, kind of that stress reliever. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hands and just give yourself a reliable target after the catch. Isaiah Bond could easily be that, but Luther Burden is going to be built a little bit more like the weapon that you kind of want in that role. Isaiah Bond's more that deep threat who's a really solid route runner. I mean, I have Bond really, really high on my board. T-Mac, I feel like you can find T-Max to help out Bo Nix, but Bo Nix, if you're trying to actually have him be your commander of the future, I think being able to give him a stress reliever like Luther Burden is going to be more beneficial for his career than giving him a target that he just says, fuck it, YOLO, I'll find him down there somewhere. Like, I just feel like if you can have the lack of processing be because of a short throw to someone who can make after the catch, rather than saying, like, I'm just going to force a ball, I feel like that might be better for Bo Nix specifically. And then again, the offense getting quick hits, it always is super helpful. So to be fair, I also have Luther Burden above Tetro McMillan, but anywho. Cowboys at 16. Sucks to see him here. You could still go Quinshawn, but again, you're talking about a low value position with somebody who just proved this past week that in a key game, they're relatively unreliable. I'm not saying that he is unreliable, but I'm saying right off that week, I need to see him bounce back. I need to see him bounce back, be top 16 selection for the Cowboys. So what I'm looking at right now, primarily, you could say defensive interior. I just don't think that Walter Nolan is going to be a top 20 guy on my board. He might be, but Isaiah Bond will be. I'm looking at where he's at 22 right now. I can see like 5 guys falling below him, and not to mention the 3 dudes above him who are out for the year. So Isaiah Bond's worth it. I've done it a lot for the Cowboys. I'm going to continue doing it for the Cowboys. At 17 for the Eagles, it's edge rusher, it's tight end. Those are the 2 positions to go for. I know that some of you do not like that, and that's okay. But surprisingly, LT Overton, he actually plays like every single position. This dude is ridiculous. I've seen nose reps from LT. I've seen edge rusher reps from LT, defensive tackle reps, as well as even off-ball linebacker. I feel like the dude should lose 10 to 15 pounds between you and me, but we'll leave it there. Looking at the edge rushers that are good for this team, Princely, James, and then also Jalen Walker. I think I'm actually going to give the nod to Princely here, though. I know that tight end probably going to be the better route to go because of all the talents that have now started to really step up. But you still have Dallas Goedert, right? So drafting the successor, that's something that you could try to calculate a little bit more. I do think that edge rusher is going to be a little bit more of a priority in the short run. James Pierce is doing a great job, but I think if Princely's injury is not too serious, again, correct me if I'm wrong, if it is too serious. But this dude is literally, I was debating him. Wasn't I debating him at in the top 10? Yeah, pick 7. This dude's a beast. Well deserving of that pick though. Pick number 18 for the Bears. Offensive line is probably the best way to go. No bones about it. For edge, bring back Darrell Taylor. Keep him there for the long run. But offensive line is going to be the key. And I think because you have Karana Amagaji, this is where you could snipe Josh Simmons. And you might not say, hey, this is a snipe. I mean, again, he's hurt for the year. But from his tape from this year, he put it all together. And it's not like ACLs, because, again, it's not confirmed at the moment. If it's something that's far more serious than again, ACLs are very serious, but if it is more serious than a very routine recovery that a lot of teams, a lot of organizations have a lot of practice putting guys through and getting them back to 100%, if not even more, then we can have that discussion. But I assume for the time being that it is something that could be routine and something that you can rehab him back even in the first year. And Josh Simmons, to me, is a blue chip tackle, and I honestly think he can easily play an all-pro level guard spot. And the Bears, based on the picks that we have that flexibility to take a shot on Josh Simmons, to be able to give him some time because Karan Amagaji is there, and he can fill in at tackle in the short run. And if Karan's great, you put Josh at guard, and you have a great young offensive line duo. But we all know offensive line is going to be how you continue to protect Caleb Williams. And even though it sucks to see Josh Simmons hurt, he still is going to come back and be a top-tier offensive tackle. He was a top 5 pick that you end up sniping at 18 because of an unfortunate injury. Again, injuries happen in the NFL. It's an unfortunate thing, but it is what it is. Pick number 19 for the Colts. It is literally ripping my soul out not to take Ben Morrison, but again, out for the year and a true junior, so we're not going to do that. But other defensive back positions, look at this. The top 2 guys, unbelievable. Then we have Mr. Burnt Toast, Denzel Burke. Oh, man. I'll just say it right now. This class is certainly thinned out in terms of actual talent, and that's what's going to suck. I cannot wait for Igbinosun to be included in here because I think I'm going to take him at 19. This dude, if he learns how to grab a little bit more in a little bit more of a sequestered way, a little bit more private, a little bit less public, you can see it from 1,000 miles away, he is going to be an absolute stud. Not many corners can shut down a receiver with their physicality the way that Igbinosun can. And so I'm going to rock it. If Jordan Hancock's going to be the placeholder, he's not going to go in the first 2 rounds, so I'm going to have an Ohio State corner be my placeholder for my number 18 player in the class, Davison Igbinosun. At pick 20, that would have been my dream fit for the Niners. However, based on how the board has fallen, I would like to look at this edge rushing group because you've been kind of Frankensteining that position for the short run. James Pierce is a little bit on the lighter side. I do think LT Overton's ceiling might be worth it at this point. I think he needs to learn to use better leverage more consistently. That's been my biggest issue with LT, is that he doesn't use consistent leverage overall. And for his size at that 283 mark, he really should. And for the Niners, that is something that you can end up getting a potential top 10, top 5 player in the class here after pick 15 because of the fact that he's still growing, still developing. He didn't start last year. You had Braswell there, you had Dallas Turner there, and now you get yourself someone who you could slim down to 275, 270, and have him be an elite edge duo there with the Bosa man, Nick Bosa. I love Nick. He's a fun dude. But pick number 21 for the Bills. Can you imagine T-Mac, the non-route running separator, with Keon Coleman, who everyone said it was a non-route running separator? That'd be kind of crazy. But I do think that safety is on the board for him. Has Kevin come back yet? Man, I forgot that Kevin has just been out for so long. Right, because I was trying to look to see if he was the reason why the end around ended up being a touchdown and he was not on the field. And I was like, his pursuit angle did not lead to that. But looking at the weapons that you could end up getting, right? You still could go T-Mac. Like, jokes aside, he does bring a ton of potential to the table. I do think that Ricky White is a dark horse first round player. This dude just gotten better and better with Hajj Malik Williams as his quarterback. So another guy to address here. But let's fix the edge core. We're still talking about it. And I really love James Pierce. He's going to be a little bit more Von Miller-esque. And so luckily we're being saved. Our asses are being saved by actual quality edge rushers in a class that's very weak, which, like, imagine if it were just like guards that were plentiful in this class. I'd rip my hair out. I'd cry. And luckily, when the class is weak, we actually got an infusion of youth at a very valuable position. At pick 22 for the Los Angeles Chargers, remember there is no trades in this. For the Chargers specifically, though, I could see T-Mac being a very valuable option here. You can pair him up with Quentin Johnston as well as Ladd McConkey for a really nice receiving trio. But you don't necessarily need to do that. You also have Brandon Rice there, who kind of does a similar thing to T-Mac, where, I mean, to be fair, actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm talking about just in terms of the impact on the offense. I would say that Rice was known more for his route running ability and actually worse for his hands, almost an inverse of what I just said. But I do want to actually end up mentioning here, going after Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan has just been going off week after week after week after week. Walter Nolan went up against a top-tier defensive or interior offensive line with minimum of 2 NFL interior offensive linemen. They're not going to be starters, right? Dellinger as well as Frazier, not starters, but they're developmental guys who will be on either a 53 or at the top of practice squads. I think they could be on 53s. And he ended up getting 6 pressures and 2 defensive stops. I honestly absolutely love what Walter Nolan's doing this year. And this is where, like, I didn't feel comfortable with Nolan here in, like, this range at 16. But at 22, you bet your ass that I am in the mood for him. Pick number 23 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is going to be where we take a shot on Jalen Walker. I still think edge rusher across from Yaya Diaby is going to be a... It's not Yaya Diaby, is it? Am I tripping? No, it is Yaya Diaby. I was debating between him and Yasser Abdullah, both Louisville guys, but Yasser is on the Jaguars. But Yaya Diaby and Jalen Walker are going to be the new duo there for the Buccaneers. And I think Yaya was also listed as a partial linebacker for Louisville back when he was playing. So it could be an intriguing, similar story there. At pick 24 for the Green Bay Packers, we're seeing T-Mac fall, but that's, it does happen. We're also seeing Colson Loveland fall, which is weird, but I do think that the need for an edge is going to be outweighed for their need for a tight end. Could certainly go after Colson Loveland here. Not going to blame you. But for the Packers specifically, defensive back, God, this class just got so weak. It just got so weak out of nowhere. It just sucks, man. It really does suck. But I'm probably going to go after someone who's going to be a little bit more explosive on the defense interior. Dalen Walker has been putting together some really solid weeks. And he was in like that 5% range. He's finally getting back to where, he's playing some respectable teams as well. Even Vandy, they beat Kentucky. Like, they've been doing a really good job there. So I'll give Dalen Walker the potential chance because it's a defensive player. I know Green Bay loves to draft that, but also gives you that pure upside, has that pass rushing ability as well as that run stuffing. And I think Kenny Clark could be an amazing mentor there for Dalen Walker. Pick number 25 for the Washington Commanders. Another team I'd go after a corner, but we've kind of siphoned all the first round talent, even though I still love quite a few guys. I would look right now primarily at edge rusher. Like, it's just a position that's super plentiful. Josiah Stewart would be the guy. Oh my God. He is what? What the I did not know. Obviously he's been playing a very interesting role there at Michigan. Like, he's not necessarily always rushing the passer, but what? I did not know it was 31%. Are you fucking kidding me? Hold up. What? I did not know. He's gone. Yeah. What in the actual hell? I did not. I love Josiah Stewart. You guys know he was my edge 8 coming into the year. But I did not know it was 31% win rate. He's 6'1", 245, which is why he'll probably still be down here at 245. But I'm taking him at that point. Hell yeah. Pick 26 for the Steelers. Quarterback, wide receiver, those are the 2 positions I'd look at. Cam Ward has slipped in my rankings a little bit. His performance versus Virginia Tech especially sat pretty poorly with me, but looking at his performance over the past 2 weeks, he ended up having 2 turnover-worthy plays in the first 4 weeks. He now has 8 total, 3 in each in the last 2 weeks. And that scares the shit out of me. That really does. So I'm not a fan of that for Cam. He also is like a big play hunter. No real need for that, especially in this offense. But still love Cam Ward. It's just, again, like, got to set expectations. T-Mac's going to be the guy. I could go after Quinshon at this point, but again, Quinshon needs to prove it to me to be a first-round pick. Just at this moment, I love him to death, but you just cannot perform like that in a big game. So we'll get a big position need for the Steelers, especially with some questions around George Pickens' allegiance and his motor. T-Mac has never really had that issue. Pick 27 for the Baltimore Ravens. Offensive line, you guys know, that's the position I run to, and it's a position I'll continue running to. Tyler Booker is going to be the guy who I really want to get here. Donovan Jackson's a stud too, but Tyler Booker to me is he's just a different beast. I don't know why he's graded poorly. I keep watching Bama. He does a good job. Same thing with Jaden Roberts, by the way. I ended up watching Kyle Kennard today, and Jaden Roberts has some pretty poor games, right? Where it's like, dude, why are you allowing 4 pressures? Like I think it was this past week. How the hell did he get that? Okay, I think he only played like 18 reps this past week, and he got a 40 pass blocking grade, because I didn't realize that was offensive grade. But this dude is so powerful, and he still performs better than what I think PFF gives him respect for. But just don't fix something that works. Tyler Booker's going to be the choice. Detroit Lions, I'm sorry, Lions fans. I am really sorry. I am still scarred by watching what happened to Aiden Hutchinson. Genuinely scarred. I'm not saying that to be like, I'm so scarred. No, like, that's some UFC level shit. And, like, my brother-in-law is a sports orthopedic surgeon, but while he was in residency, I got to actually go shadow him in an OR one time, and I saw a guy who was on a motorcycle get into a motorcycle accident. I didn't see the accident, but the guy who was being operated on was a guy who got in a motorcycle accident, and he had a very similar injury where right down at that shin, just like, So it takes me back to that, and it's just like, ugh, it sucks, man. But long story short, I mean, I sympathize for you guys. It sucks. I mean, obviously, I've lost TJ Watt for a year, but just watching something like that happen to somebody that you know deserves so much in this world, like, God, that hits you in the core. It really does. And the problem is, my dumbass is taking so many edge rushers at this point that you're having to start to justify why you'd end up taking certain edge rushers. But with that being said, I do actually have a really solid grade on Kyle Kennard. His Alabama performance was ass because I think he got hurt versus Ole Miss. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but he just did not have that same twitch versus Bama. I ended up going and watching LSU. How the fuck is his grade that much lower? He's a different animal. It was so different that I genuinely threw out my analysis of him versus Alabama, where he was still solid versus the run, but I threw it out for how well he played versus LSU. And I think this guy could be, if you're in a pinch, worth a first-round pick. So we'll go after Kyle Kennard there. Pick number 29 for the Atlanta Falcons. By the way, Kyle Kennard is the exact same grade as LT Overton. So, again, keep that in mind. But for the Falcons, it's another team. If Kyle Kennard were there, I'd debate it. But weapons, never a bad idea. And Emeka Egbuka could certainly work here. He's been finally healthy and finally consistent enough to be like, I could throw those health concerns aside. So I'm super excited for him in that regard. I'm going to go Emeka Egbuka here. Late first, solid pick. Defensive backs, not worth it. Edge rushers, not worth it. Pick number 30. Defensive interior is worth it for the Texans because there's only one defensive interior that I really like, who's a really solid run defender, because I think your pass rush is doing just fine. That's Tyleik Williams. Again, kind of subpar in terms of pass rush. If you want to go crazy, you can go Derek Harmon, but again, you're talking about someone who's going to be essentially a DPR, right? You saw that 4.5% run stop rate. He's designed to be a penetrator. And he did force the fumble, to be fair. He forced that one fumble from Quinshon Judkins. But Tyleik Williams, you just need someone to be consistent on the defensive interior. You're not looking for pressure. You got that from the edges. You aren't desperate for it, I would say. You certainly would like it, but you're not desperate for it. At pick number 31 for the Kansas City Chiefs, this is actually going to be Colston Loveland. I know you just ended up paying Noah Gray, but if you end up actually getting Colston Loveland to fall into your lap, can you say no? I don't think you can afford to say no. There's a certain point to where you can use Colston Loveland as a receiver. You can use Gray. Kelsey, we all know he's kind of, he's up. He's up. We know. He's kind of just on his victory lap. Defense interior could be an interesting point at this point, but I'm not going to go after defense interior 4. Actually, defense interior 5. Excuse me. I already just went one. Walter Nolan's been going off, so I'm used to saying DI 4, but defensive interior 5. Offensive line, we could totally target someone like Jonah Jackson, but not Jonah Jackson. I'm tripping. What is my guy's name? Donovan Jackson. But yeah, there's a certain time where you just say we can't afford to say no. And Gray and Colston Loveland are going to be a nasty duo. Pick number 32 for the Minnesota Vikings. This is where, like, this is late first. I would trade out before I'd go Quinshon, but again, there's no trades in this. So we're going to go Quinshon Judkins. It's a solid pick. You guys love it. I respect it. Pick 33 for the New England Patriots. We went after Will Campbell with our first overall selection. And we've, to be fair, depleted the edge rushing core a little bit. But this is a team where I feel perfectly fine when analyzing the guys who are available, going after a Mikael Williams, going after a Donovan Eziruwaku. Like, I personally feel comfortable with it. JT Tuimoloau coming off a 7 pressure week. Like, he actually finally clicked, and I'm like, yes. And it's versus NFL talent, too. So, I'm actually going to go Mikel, though. Your team is in a developmental mode with a ton of time and patience to be able to get things right. I want to be able to get things right with Mikel. At pick 34 for the Cleveland Browns, quarterbacks here, and I think you just can't miss out on it. We end up selecting Travis Hunter in the first. We're drafting Shedeur Sanders here in the second. I would have Sheduer going in the first if there were trades. But again, you have to ask yourself which team is going to be taking a quarterback at this part of the first round. Pick number 35 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We ended up taking Will Johnson in the first. Here in the second, we are going to be going after Jack Nelson, who's coming off one of his better weeks. Also, he ended up performing very well as a pass protector versus Rutgers. So coming off back-to-back weeks with a lot of momentum as a positive pass rushing or a pass blocking performer. At pick number 36 for the Chicago Bears, we drafted Josh Simmons, who I think is a blue chip offensive tackle, as well as a potentially even better graded guard in the first. So he just fell because of, unfortunately, he's out for the year. But sitting here at pick 36, I don't think that we don't need to ignore defensive interior if you want to get Derek Harmon. But at the same time, you could look at a slot receiver here. It's going to be this one of the weird spots to where I kind of already addressed those positions where I really wanted to address it. But I know that you guys actually like this pick as well. And to be fair, he's actually a center versatile player. I'm actually going to draft our center here who actually has the capabilities to fill in at right tackle in case of injury. We're going to go Jonas Savagnia. So continuing on, we ended up getting our guard / tackle as well as our center with really good value. And again, both those guys have that tackle flexibility. So especially in case of injuries, you have a lot of very tangible depth. You don't have to worry about like, oh, well, we're putting a center at tackle. It's like, no, we're putting a tackle at tackle who we moved to center because Jonah is projected by a lot of people to be even better as a center than he is a tackle. And he's been coming off his best week, 85 pass blocking grade, 0 pressures allowed. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, BYU, you might not think that they're that great, but they have some dudes who get like 9 pressures in certain games, I got to say. Pick number 37, though, for the Carolina Panthers. This is where you look at quarterback. We went after edge rusher in round 1. We're going to go after quarterback here. It is going to be Cam Ward. Athletic, great arm talent. The dude just needs to not hunt for the big play all the time. Luckily, you have some very good weapons on the team to where if you do have that issue, I still think Cam Ward can function. Pick number 38 for the Titans. We went after a tackle in the first round. Wide receiver is key here. I hate to be a broken record, but Trey Harris is literally the perfect fit for this team. I know that you guys like it, but I mean, I just feel bad sometimes because it is a little bit copy-paste, but it is the best move. It is the best move. He's been having a phenomenal year, and he fits the Titans to a T. Pick number 39 for the Bengals. We already went after defensive line, correct? With Mason Graham. You could actually look at wide receiver here. You could even look at tight end with Harold Fannin, but I don't really, well, to be fair, Drew Sample was taken with a second round pick, but Drew Sample was also a really good blocker. Harold Fannin, I don't really need in that discussion as a blocker. I would say it's kind of sad that he's not on here, but CJ Dupre, that's actually, it feels like kind of would be a Bengals tight end. But regardless, we drafted Mason Graham in the first. I do think a corner at this point is acceptable. And there are some pretty solid ones. I would actually say I saw some really positive, some good positive momentum from Mansour Delane, especially in that Miami game. But man, it is tough to think that. Like, I'm just not a huge Mansour Delane guy at the moment. Again, due for reevaluation. But Denzel Burke, there's no way I'm going to send that burnt toast in the second round at the moment. Fortunately, to be fair, the draft is kind of shaping up to be like that. I'm going to go actually after JT Tuimoloau. Coming off his best week, and look at it, top 75% in both pass rush win rate as well as run stop rate. To be fair, yes, this is based on an entire group of players and not necessarily saying, oh, this is a benchmark we're looking for. So in a weaker class, tops 25% is still going to be great, but you know, it's not like we're talking about Latu with the 25% pass rush win rate. Unlike, I mean, fucking Josiah Stewart with a 33%. But JT Tuimoloau brings that frame, brings the Ohio State background that you guys have had in the past, and it looks like it's finally clicking for him, coming off a 7 pressure, 2 defensive stop week. Pick number 40 for the New Orleans Saints. We ended up going after a defensive back in round 1, looking at receiver potentially here in round 2. You got AlexCBarbour. I think that'd be a really nice combination with Chris Olave, Bub Means, Jaden Higgins as well. Jaden Higgins has been a ballin'. You guys know how much I love him, but he's been balling. 0% drop rate, pretty much 2/3 in terms of contested catch rate. Finally, his first week in 8 weeks where he didn't catch a touchdown. So his streak has officially ended, but he had over 100 yards this past week. I think I'm going to start putting some respect on his name. I think he'd be a really good New Orleans Saint, and I think he pairs very well and complements the receiving core that you have. And I'm going to stand on business, man. I really, really like him. He's my number 34 player, and that's based on when he had a relatively mediocre performance versus Iowa. And he still had a good performance, but there's just, I saw something different in Jaden Higgins, and, I might be seeing it start to build up again. Pick number 41 for the Arizona Cardinals. We drafted edge in round number 1. Defense interior here in round number 2 would Derek Harmon be interesting. I do think run defense is kind of key, though. I don't think you can go after a pure DPR here. You don't have that luxury. TJ Sanders, he's been pretty damn consistent. And even though the grades don't exactly say it, again, I do like to point you guys to the pass rush win rate and the run stop rate. When you have that perfect balance, that's something that I feel I'd be pretty damn comfortable with. So we're going to be going after TJ Sanders, giving him a little bit more love than we normally do. But once again, we're in a time that's extremely depressing with Ben Morrison, Ravel, Perkins, as well as Simmons out for the year. So it's okay. For the Vegas Raiders, you guys are like, oh, you didn't take a quarterback round 1. Look at all the talents here in round 2, guys. Come on now. Come on. So Drew Lar's coming off his worst week statistically, even though he still had a really solid game. He had his slip-ups, but, this dude, the fact that we're saying, like a 3 turnover-worthy play game is an all-time worst game for him, like that's fine in my book. But Miller Moss is the guy who I absolutely adore still. He's just somebody that I ended up watching him in all 22. I thought he kind of sucked when I watched him live. But when you actually just sit and watch how he plays, how the defense reacts, you understand how much better the defense was than actually how poor Miller Moss was. Miller Moss was actually doing a very solid job. That being said, you can go Quinn Ewers, you can go Drew Lar. I don't think that there's going to be a bad option here. Carson Beck is not a scrub either. Garrett Nussmeier, not a scrub either. I think Quinn Ewers actually had a relatively poor showing versus OU. So I'm not going to give him that love. To be fair, the majority of these quarterbacks are coming off pretty mid-weeks, but I'm actually going to go with the upside of Drew Lar. I think that's what you guys are missing. And it sucks because I want to take him to my Steelers. You guys know how much I love Drew Lar to the Steelers. But when you have Ashton Genty to carry the mantle and carry the primary responsibility and allow Drew Lar to continue developing using his amazing trait, which is having a pretty damn solid processor, having a really good arm, and just in a really good motor as well. He's been developing his throw mechanics every single year. That's something that is a successful trait. And it's going to be a really nice duo to have. Pick number 43 for the New York Giants. We took Milroe in round number 1. Happy with my decision there. I'm going to be rocking AlexCBarbour here in round 2. Just a consistent, big-bodied receiver in a shitty offense. He falls here basically because he doesn't get enough exposure. Pick number 44 for the Miami Dolphins. Offensive line, you guys know the deal. And I want to go after someone who's consistent. You got Tate Ratledge, you got Donovan Jackson. Both of them are honestly really solid. Regardless of the fact, I have seen enough consistency from Georgia to where I'd say that's more impressive for Donovan Jackson's performances than Tate Ratledge's. Because, Dylan Fairchild has been doing unbelievably well. The right guard who replaced Tate Ratledge has been doing a really solid job. So I'm going to go after the guy where when Ohio State loses them, they perform far worse. I think that the comparative loss is a little bit greater when you lose Donovan Jackson. So I'm also going to stick to my board and go after the player I have higher. Pick number 45 for the Jets. We went after a tight end in round number 1. I know that there's some feathers that are ruffled on that one. But here in round 2, we could actually go after the quarterback of the future, i.e. Quinn Ewers, to take someone who's going to be a little more developmental because the high-level plays are awesome. Defensive interior-wise, I think this is a squad where you can take a risk on a player like Derek Harmon, who is an elite pass rusher, who does have a lot of experience being on a lot of different fronts there at Michigan State. This is someone who I personally really, really love. And to be fair, it adds a lot of oomph, a little bit of sizzle to the steak. You could try to go after a right tackle here, like Blake Miller, but I think Blake Miller is he's a fine option, but like just go in free agency or wait till the third round. For the Jets specifically, when you have this option here, comparatively, I'd go after Derek Harmon. But at 46 for a team that like the team needs like the Seahawks, you could look at it. But of course, we drafted Ariante Irsay round 1. But this would be where if you want to justify Blake Miller, it's perfectly fine. He's not really physical enough. I'd probably go after Membu or Belton at this point. But we've already done that. We actually might get a lot of help out of going after Harold Fannin here. This dude's a freak show. After the catch, he finally had a week where he's under 150 yards, which is kind of crazy. It's a similar to the Ashton Genty of tight ends. But, for the Seahawks, I don't mind going after Harold Fannin here. I don't think that'd be a bad choice. Of course, you can go after defensive back. A lot of really good ones. Billy Bowman coming off a hot week. Lathan Ransom being an absolute beast. But because of that, because there's so many of them, I'm actually going to rock it. Harold Fannin after the catch. I know that you're not in a bad spot tight end wise, but Harold Fannin could just make you that much better. So I'm going to take him. Denver Broncos here at 47. I'm going to look at the edge core because of the fact that both of the top edges are up for contracts. And looking at the guy who would fit the best, I'm actually looking at Donovan Azuruwaku here because of the fact that he also has some coverage reps as well. I feel like he could be pretty damn close to a Baron Browning role in this defense. And at 47, that's very, very good value for a very talented player. At pick 48 for the Dallas Cowboys, we went after Isaiah Bond in round number 1. Here in round number 2, you could look at the running backs. Again, I just say wait to the third round for them. No need to force an issue. This is where Derek Harmon would have been really fun. But Aeneas Peoples, I think, is perfectly understandable as a really good choice. He is statistically better than Derek Harmon, but Derek Harmon's a little bit bigger, 290 here, and I think Derek Harmon's 310. Yeah, he's 310. So, gonna be a little bit on the smaller side, but to replace Osa Odigizua, I personally like it. I personally do. So, I'm gonna go after Aeneas Peoples. You could actually go after wide receiver again, but I actually think Ryan Flournoy should be taking a big step up here. If Philadelphia Eagles, the risk with not going after a tight end in round number 1, we're screwed in terms of that here in round number 2. That being said, I do think you could look at some future ups, like super high ceiling offensive linemen at this point, but don't fuck with it. Don't fuck with it. So, Cooper DeJean's looking good. Quinion's looking good. You could look at the linebacker at this point. And look at the guys who are best. Jihad Campbell, when he's not sucking, is awesome. Like, simply put, there's not unbelievable linebackers in the class, but there's a lot of linebackers I like. And I personally think Jack Kaiser's solid. Barrett Carter's awesome. He fits the same profile as well as what Nakobe Dean does. And I think he's actually better than what Nakobe Dean's doing. That being said as well, you could try to get some extra defensive interior pressure, but we've siphoned the options off. Just tight end wise, I don't see it. I don't see it at all. And we ended up drafting Princey Umami Ellen in round 1. If we drafted someone who's a little bit bigger, then maybe you could try to justify a linebacker edge hybrid here. Wide receiver, you're good. Tight end, we already talked about. Running back, you guys are set. So it would be offensive line or else linebacker. That would be your best return on investment. And I'm going to go after the linebacker here. I think Barrett Carter's just slipped under the radar for too long. And I wanted you guys to get Simpson a while back. You guys didn't do that. Simpson's doing a good job. Don't make the same mistake again. Barrett Carter also former teammates with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So you have a young duo there as well, growing underneath the linebacker core that you already have. Pick number 50 for the Chicago Bears. We went offensive line twice. Hallelujah. Defense interior, no longer going to be a choice. I'm actually going to go for a player to replace Keenan Allen. And it's a player I really, really love. That's Ricky White out of UNLV. He's a dangerous receiver, and he's also a really big special teams player. He ended up having 2 punt blocks about a week ago. So, awesome player right there. Pick 51 for the Indianapolis Colts. We already gone. What do we do for the Colts in round number 1? My brain is having a mush moment. Yeah, put that on a t-shirt. We went after Igbinosun. Love that. So, with Igbinosun off the table, I actually do think this is a proper time to at least look at some extra off-ball linebacker support. And you got Jack Kaiser there that's right down the road, and he is my linebacker 1 at the moment. So I'll be rocking him just to change things up a little bit. So Jack Kaiser going to be the choice there. Pick 52 for the Niners. This is a team that I think has the luxury of taking one of these more aggressive offensive linemen. For some reason, I personally just feel Anthony Belton is a 49er. Like, I don't know why. There's just something about him that has that mauler mentality that fits with Trent Williams. I'm going to be rocking it to be their right tackle. Pick number 53 for the Buffalo Bills. Kevin Winston's here due to injury fall. We ended up going after edge in round 1 with, what, Josiah Stewart? No. What do we do? Am I tripping? Oh, James Pierce. Hello. We are going to be going after Kevin Winston Jr. here. It's the proper time to take him. Injuries aside, he's still a top-tier safety who will be a great fit there in Buffalo. Pick number 54 for the Los Angeles Chargers. We took Walter Nolan in round number 1. I think that's a solid choice. Tight end's been depleted. Wide receiver, you could try to snipe somebody here. Ty Felton wouldn't be a bad choice because, I mean, to be fair, he's been dominating. He's been doing a good job. He's been doing a very good job. So, I mean, technically, versus Northwestern, not so much, but I'll give him some slack. I think that you should too. But besides that, you could even look in that linebacking core personally. A Junior Colson's there, but I don't think Diane Henley is all that. But corner, this is where we might end up taking somebody. And you know what? Getting a defensive back like Decario Davis, who's very high IQ, I don't know how the hell they give him a 49 zone coverage grade. That's literally not correct. I think that they kind of got that mistaken because he's pretty damn solid in zone. But regardless of the fact, he's big, he's physical, he fits Cam Smith profile, but he almost balances Smith, or can't. Am I tripping? Who the hell is the corner from Notre Dame that you guys got last year? Cam Hart. So he kind of balances Cam Hart out with similar size, but more of that IQ compared to that physicality. And it could end up being a defensive back, but you're getting yourself a good player nonetheless. Pick 55 for the Buccaneers. I could have ended up getting that tight end and ended up getting an edge rusher now, but that we'll keep that between us. This is where I think someone like Omarion Hampton could be in the mix. He's been very reliable there for the Tar Heels. He's been pretty much the majority of their offense. So I'm going to give that to you guys in the meantime, where you pair him up with Bucky Irving, and then you have someone who's more of a bowling ball versus someone who's going to be a little bit more elusive for the future. Love Sean Tucker as well. He's the home run hitter. So you kind of have the home run hitter, the one cut, as well as a little bit more of the guy that you just give the ball to 20,000 times. Like, you have a good rotation of backs there to complement each other. Pick 56 for the Green Bay Packers. I know that you guys liked this move last time, so I'm also going to be making it. It's interior offensive line. And Jake Slaughter had a little bit of a tough time. I do love Parker Brailsford. To be fair, Jaden Roberts could be a fun addition to your team. Went after defense interior round 1. So keep that in mind as well. Could go after a corner here. Like, there are some solid corners. Mansour Delane, to be fair, based on his overall coverage ability, his physical profile, I would not say it's out of the realm of possibility for you guys. And actually, based on his performance versus Miami, which is the big game in my opinion, I'm going to give him to you guys. Pick 57 for the Commanders, another team that could be looking at corner. Again, the top 2 guys, Ravel and Morrison, are going to be considered not coming out. Denzel Burke got burnt like some legitimate toast. You guys got an edge in round number 1. Could look at a right tackle here. However, I'd probably rather go after like the best player available. And jeepers. I mean, looking at my best next corner, technically I have Burke, but he's due for a reevaluation based on last week, which is not bueno. But you could certainly try to boost your offensive line a little bit more with someone like Jaden Roberts. Not out of the question. I'm just going to say go after best player available. And to me, that might be Ty Felton. He's going to be very similar in terms of his impact to De'Ami Brown. It's kind of like a mixture between the impact of De'Ami Brown and Malik Neighbors, which is like, I think it's a profile that is very comfortable with Jaden Daniels, and he's a really, really good weapon, obviously right down the road there in Maryland. So getting yourself a top-tier edge rusher and a top-tier receiver from the Big Ten, always a good thing. Just double checking that we did end up taking Stewart. We did. I'm like, I could be speaking out my ass. Pick number 58 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, quarterback's been corner is depleted at the moment. Already took our receiver. I do think quarterback is still a position we should look at. I see that there's just a lot of short-term memory loss with Justin, and I love Justin, but also he's not guaranteed to come back. Both the quarterbacks are on one-year deals. I do think Miller Moss might be the best for the system. He has solid mobility, but it's not going to be the primary asset of his game. And I think that his processing is on par with Justin, if not better. He hits the tight windows as well. I know it's going to piss people off. It will. I just know it. But I'm going to stand on business, man. I just reevaluated him today. I actually thought he did a really solid job versus Penn State. Had a couple reps in there I didn't really like. But at the same time, based on the performances of all these quarterbacks, I don't think there's a quarterback you can point to in this class that is much better in many categories. Like, yeah, you have some guys with the athleticism bonus, but Miller Moss is no slouch. You have someone with a better arm bonus, but Miller Moss is not a slouch. And then there's some guys who make some better decisions like Shedeur Sanders, but Miller Moss is in a system where sometimes he's forced to make a read that he's not supposed to make, but overall does a really good job. So I'm going to stick my neck out for Miller. I think he performed better than Quinn Ewers did this week, so I'm going to let Quinn fall and let Miller rise. Pick number 59 for the Baltimore Ravens. Offensive line again in the mood, but when you can get someone like Nick Emmanwori and the Ravens, I mean, just a real rangy freak, I like the idea. We're going to go Nick Emmanwori to bring 6'3", 227 there with Kyle Hamilton for the future. I call it a done deal. Pick number 60 for the Lions. We're going good old faithful here. We're going Tate Ratledge when healthy. Not many guys are as consistent as he is. Pick number 61 for the Atlanta Falcons. Triple checking that I didn't just screw that up, and I did not. For the Falcons, we ended up going receiver in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I feel comfortable with the edge core at this point. Kamen Rucker is coming off a pretty rough week, but he's also coming off injury. I've seen what he does when he's completely healthy, and he's an absolute rock star. So we're going to go Kamen Rucker there. Pick 62 for the Houston Texans when defense interior round number 1. Here in round number 2, you could try to go after a running back, but Joe Mixon's been doing a great job, and you'd be getting a backup running back at this point. Wouldn't really see much value in that. I'd be actually going after the highest ceiling player. And that high ceiling player is giving a massive middle finger to the Chiefs and going after Jaden Roberts, which would have been my dream pick for them at 63. But with the Chiefs sitting here who took a tight end in round number 1, we have the option of being able to go a plethora of routes. And you know what? Emory Jones might have allowed 9 pressures this past week, but I still think he's going to be damn near a great starter at guard. He's physical, he's mobile, and he's very experienced as well. He's just coming off a really shitty week, and I just don't really see the tackle in him anymore, but I can see him being a damn good guard. So he's going to be there, and then worst case scenario, you can always fill him in at tackle if need be. Pick number 64 for the Buffalo Bills, and ending off this mock draft, I'm going to be using this on a receiver, and there's a lot of really solid options here. Again, Bo Collins, I think, is someone who gets a ton of disrespect, but 16% drop rate, I don't blame you. I think the rest of his game deserves a lot more credit. However, it's well-deserved criticism. Juice Wells has been an absolute non-factor, by the way. Like, the dude literally has caught like 0 catches in like the past 3 weeks. But Jalen Royals after the catch, unstoppable. And I just feel like, I don't know, there's something inside me that's saying he's a Bill. So we're going to be rocking it with Buffalo and Jalen Royals, who put up over 200 yards versus Boise State. So that's going to be the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for all the videos for the rest of the week. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.